Hi everybody, this is a postnatal Pilates class. It will be about 45 minutes long, and it doesn't matter where in your postnatal recovery you are, as long as you've had a sign off from your doctor or your midwife. Usually that's around 6 weeks, but it will vary for everybody. So as long as you're feeling comfortable, but remember that not every exercise will be perfect for you. So listen to your body on each exercise and see how you get on. Make sure you've got some water nearby and take regular sips, especially if you're still breastfeeding. But other than that, I think that is everything. So if we're ready, let's get started. So we're going to start in the middle of our mat. So come to the center of the mat. And I just want you to pick up your feet a few times. And I want you to imagine that you're walking down the street and you haven't got anybody or anything with you, okay? So you haven't got your children with you. And then when you're ready, I just want you to stop and put your feet where you think you would put them if you were about to be stood in a long queue. So get comfortable, relax into it, and then close your eyes if you're able to, if you're not looking after a child. And then just try and relax into this position as much as you can. So once you're in this relaxed position, it should be comfortable. And what you're trying to find is your default resting posture. So this is the position that you're probably in for a lot of the day, especially as soon as you add a child into that, you know, we can really start to change our posture to find the easiest position to carry our kids. So try and think about how your posture has changed over time and what you think your posture looks like. Things to think about are, where's the weight in your foot? Is it both feet, heel, toe, or one leg? What are your knees doing? Are they locked or are they soft? Where is your pelvis? If it was a bowl of water, would the water be spilling out of any sides? Front, back, one of your sides? Where's the rib cage? So is it pulled in and down, or is it flared like we tend to get postnatally? Where are your shoulders? Are they slumped forwards from hours of feeding and cuddling? Or do you feel your collarbone is wide? And if you were to open your eyes, where would your eye line be? We spend a lot of time as parents looking down at our children. So where do you think your natural gaze would be? And then when you're ready, I want you to think about what your breath is like in this position. So how easy is it to breathe here? And how efficient is that breath? Is it deep? Are you filling up all of the rib cage, or is it quite shallow? And then when you're ready, just open your eyes, and where is that gaze? Is it where you thought it would be? And you could also probably have a little look around as well at your posture and just have a think, was it what you thought it looked like? A really common, not everybody, but lots of us postnatally posture type would look like mine. So pelvis tilted forwards, tummy sort of feeling like it's pushed out, and glutes kind of clenched. Okay, some people go the other way though, they sort of tuck under. So have a think about where you are, where you're at. Now I want you to find a more neutral standing position. So have a look at the feet, bring them to parallel. And then I want you to pick up the toes and spread them nice and wide. And have a look at the feet. Do they both spread equally, or do you have kind of more movement on one foot? And then think about your knees. Are they locked or are they bent? They should just be a bit soft, so just unlock those knees. Think about the pelvis like it's a bowl of water that you don't want to spill. So remember, some of us will have tilted forwards, the water spills out the front. Some of us though might have gone the other way, so try and get it level. Think about the rib cage like it's a bowl that's upside down, and see if you can stack it directly over the bowl of your pelvis. Arms are by the side of your body, you're showing off your collarbone, and your eye line is straight ahead. And we're just going to hold that there. So what I want you to feel is stacked. I want you to think about the crown of your head being over the rib cage, which is over the pelvis, which is over the arches of your feet. Now think about your breath, and is it easier to breathe well here? Do you feel like you're taking a bit of a deeper breath? Now, staying in this neutral position, I want you to take your hands and wrap them around the sides of your rib cage. So thumb at the back, fingers at the front. Relax the shoulders a bit. And then whilst breathing, let's see if we can improve this breath. So as you breathe in, try and breathe into your hands. Feel the rib cage expand. And as you exhale, draw the rib cage in and down. Again, as you inhale, breathe into your hands, feel the rib cage separate and push out. And then as you exhale, feel the rib cage drawing in and down. So we really need to make sure that we're breathing efficiently postnatally. That naturally stimulates your pelvic floor and your abdominals. So it's really important that we spend some time here really trying to fill up all of the rib cage. Just do a couple more here, trying to expand laterally more if you can. And then switch the hands, so you've got one hand on your chest underneath your boobs, and then one hand on your back, so back of the rib cage. And then again, continue breathing and just see if you feel any movement. Are we breathing front and back? So we really need to think about the breath being a 360-degree breath. Breathe into all of the rib cage. And not only does this help stimulate your core, but it also calms you down. So as parents, I think we probably all need that. Just do a couple more. Lovely, filling up the ribs as much as you can. And on that last one, feel as if you're cleaning out your lungs, and then you can relax. Have a bit of a wiggle, have a bit of a shake out. Now, find neutral again for me and place your hands on your tummy. Doesn't matter where, okay? So, but around your waistband or your belly button. Come back to breathing again, breathing into all of the rib cage. And as you exhale, blowing out with a bit of pressure, almost like you're blowing some dust away. And then keep that going. And are you feeling anything under your hands? When we force an exhale, we should feel an engagement in the core. So what we might feel is a drawing in of our tummy. Early postnatally, that might not happen much because those muscles have stretched and it takes a while for tone to come back. But as we get further through our postnatal journey, we should notice a forced exhale brings the tummy in, because it contracts your abdominals. So just do a couple more of those. You can also encourage it, if you want to, on the exhale by lifting your pelvic floor and visualizing a corset tightening up. And then on the inhale, letting it go. And then on the last one, I'd like you to engage and then hold. Now we call this a brace, but it's not a great name for it because that seems really aggressive. But what it is core engagement, but we should still be able to breathe now. So make sure you're not holding your breath. You've still got that engagement, but you're able to breathe under a brace. And I'd like you to keep that now. From here, you're going to bring your hands to prayer position instead. And again, we've still got that feeling of some support around our core. And we're going to go straight into hip hinges. So we're going to start pushing our bums back, almost like you're trying to tap the wall behind you with your bum. That begins a hip hinge. Sorry, I'll turn that off in a second. You'll keep going until you go as far as you can without losing your neutral spine. So once you're out here, you'll get to that point where you can't go any further. And what's holding us back is the hamstrings and the glutes being in a nice stretched position. And that's what I want. So you can always kind of prod your bum and just check that you feel like these muscles are off and they are stretched. Then from here, with that similar core engagement, you're going to exhale to push the feet into the floor. That will bring you all the way back up to standing, into neutral, and then go again. So inhale, you start pushing your bum back, you hinge forwards, the glutes and hamstrings stretch. Exhale, press into your feet, and that should bring you all the way back to standing. And we're going to keep this going. Now remember that hip hinges are really important postnatally because we're hip hinging a lot just by interacting with our kids. So picking them up, checking them in their cot, giving them a bath. We're going to be hip hinging then. And what can happen is if we've lost a bit of strength through the core and the core's not showing up, other areas of the body will start to take over when you're in a hip hinge. So instead here, now we haven't got our children to consider, we can think about doing it properly, making sure that the abdominals are on to stop your lower back taking over, and making sure that the hamstrings and glutes are what is pulling you back up, okay? Otherwise it can go into that lower back. Just keep that going for me. I'm just gonna make sure that we don't get any more of those pings. So nice neutral spine, lovely. Collarbone nice and wide, so just watch that the shoulders aren't collapsing. And we're gonna do 2 more of these. Sticking that bum out, but just watching it doesn't become this. We don't slip into extension. And then on the last one, we're then going to come up about halfway, and then we're going to hold it there for a moment. Now this is a kind of halfway house. I don't want the glutes and hamstrings completely stretched out. I need them on to keep you here, so that when you are in this position changing nappies and things, your back has some support. So can you feel that your bum cheeks are on? You can always give them a prod. It should be a feeling of your bum cheeks kind of squeezing together. And then you can stay here, or if you feel up to it, reach your arms back behind you and go into cheerleaders. So one arm forwards, one arm backwards. And as we move the arms, the rest of the spine stays nice and still. If anybody wants more, we could do both arms forwards and both arms back. Exhale, both arms reach, and inhale, both arms come back. So whatever you're doing, we need to be able to make sure the whole back of the body is working and it's not just the lower back taking over. Let's do 2 more and then 1 more. Then when you're ready, bring your hands back to prayer position at your chest, push yourself all the way back to standing and have a wiggle and a shake out. And just think about where you were feeling that. Hopefully it wasn't all in the lower back. Then from here, come back to standing in neutral. So reset for a moment, thinking about the bowl of the pelvis and the bowl of the rib cage stacking. Arms are by your side. You're going to exhale to reach your arms up overhead and then hold, and just make sure that you haven't started to lean back. So see if you can stay nice and neutral, and then inhale, slowly lower the arms down. Exhale to lift the arms and inhale to lower the arms. And it seems like a really simple movement, but we're bringing our arms into a different position to what they're probably in for most of the day. And we're also giving ourselves a bit of low-level core engagement. Because to not lose neutral, so to not do this, the abdominals at the front need to be working. So try and keep the ribs and pelvis stacked. Lovely. We're going to do 2 more of these and then 1 more. Then on the next one, leave your arms by your side, lift your heels up. So you're up on the ball of your foot, and it will feel a bit wobbly at first. Once you're up here, think about what you look like from the side. Can we try and stay neutral? So stay stacked. Think about what you look like from the front. Do we fall out or in, or are we staying neutral? Then from here, we're going to inhale to lower and exhale to lift. Inhale down and exhale up. And really think about where the weight is spread on the ball of that foot. Good. Sometimes when we do it wrong, it's still really helpful. So don't always think if you can't do it perfectly, then it's not worth doing. If your ankles are rolling out here, that just tells us we need to do a bit more ankle stability work. Same as if they roll inwards. So at least we know that there's something we want to work on here. And then again, think about your positioning. So are we managing to keep that pelvis neutral? And same with the rib cage. If we think about what's happened during pregnancy, your abdominals have stretched out. So that's the reason why I tend to see a lot of women postnatally who do a lot of this, because the abs at the front have lost their pull. So that's why we just want to keep checking, especially during exercises like this, that we haven't just let that happen. We've not just let it all hang out. We've got a bit of control. So on the next one, I want you to add the arms back in. So arms are lifting as the heels are lifting. And then we really do have to think about those abdominals staying in check, keeping the ribs and pelvis in the same place. Good. Exhaling as we lift, inhaling as we lower. Really nice. We're going to do 2 more of these. We're going to continue to slowly make this harder, but you can always go back to the previous level. On the next one, we come up, we stay. Leave the arms here and then move your ankles again. So inhaling to lower and exhaling to lift. We should be really starting to feel the calves working. Good. Have we still got a bit of abdominal connection at the front? Lovely. And then last option, come up and stay on the ball of the foot and move just the arms. And this one should feel the most wobbly. So we're going to need some stability here. Good. Just being really mindful that you don't fall, particularly if you've had a cesarean. Let's do 2 more. Lovely. Last one. We're going to finish with the arms and the heels lifted. Are we still relatively neutral? And then when you're done, lower the heels, lower the arms and have a rest. Have a quick wiggle. Hopefully the calves are getting quite hot. Good. We're going to come back to calves in a moment, but come back to standing in neutral. Only a couple more standing exercises, I promise. So find neutral, fingers to temples, elbows wide. So I talked about how we spend a lot of time looking down at our children. We need to make sure that we reverse that. So keep the pelvis where it is in neutral, and on your next inhale, start to take your eyes and your chest towards the ceiling. So look up, lift the chest, and then hold for a moment. And in this position, the back of your neck should be smooth. So just be careful you're not flinging your head back. And we're aiming for thoracic extension. So this upper back is where we feel the stretch. And then when you're ready, exhale, slowly come back to neutral and then do it again. Inhale, lift the eyes and the chest towards the ceiling. Exhale, slowly come back to neutral. Inhaling as you lift and exhaling as you lower. So what I don't want is loads of change in the curve in your lower back. That would look more like this. So all I'm doing really is hinging on my lower back. And given what we know about our bodies postnatally, that's probably already kind of a habit we've got into. So try to think about it coming from the upper back instead. So showing off the collarbone, flaring the rib cage. And we're going to do 2 more of these. On the last one, let's lift and then hold it there for a moment. So chest is lifted, showing off your collarbone. The back of your neck is smooth. We haven't just moved the neck. We might be able to feel the tummy stretching. And then when you're ready, come back to neutral, relax again, and again have a quick wiggle. So last standing exercise. So calf raises are really important, but single calf raises are the most important thing if you're thinking about getting back to running and jumping kind of exercises. So come back to neutral. Arms are going to be out just for some support, especially if you're early days postnatal. We're going to come up onto the balls of the feet and we're going to hold. Now imagine you've got a glass of water on your head you don't want to spill. I'd like you to shift your weight to your left leg without spilling that water. So it's not really obvious. And then you can keep as much or as little weight in this right foot as you like, but we're going to calf raise with the left leg. So we're going to inhale, lower the left heel, and then exhale to lift. Oop. Inhale to lower, and then exhale to lift. So it's only my left heel that's dropping down. And it's up to you how much you use your right leg, but you can also just hold the wall if it means that you can take more weight out of your right foot. I just need the load to be in the left leg. Doesn't bother me at all whether you're using your arms or not. So if we think about what's happening when we do things like running and jumping and even walking, we're single leg pushing off the ball of the foot. So we need to make sure that we're really good at that. If we want to start adding in some impact, that will stop us landing so aggressively, and it will take a lot of the impact out of harder exercises like running. So we're going to do 2 more of these, and on the next one, come up, hold, shift the weight to the other foot. So weight on the right foot, take as much weight off your left leg as you can, and then start moving that right ankle again. So lowering and lifting. Same principles as earlier on, still want the stacking of the ribs over the pelvis. And you might find one side's easier, one side's harder. It's only really worth doing these single calf raises if you can keep your ankle neutral. So make it as easy as you need to do it well, rather than making it really hard and then, you know, losing all form. All we're going to do then is make our ankles more unstable. And we've got 2 more of these. Good. 1 more. Lift up, put the weight back into both feet, lower the heels and rest. And again, maybe have a quick wiggle and a shake out. And now we can move to the end of the mat. So let's work our way to the end of the mat. Take a moment to reset and then take a big deep breath in. And as you exhale, let's take a roll down, chin to chest, peeling down. A vertebra at a time. Knees need to be soft on the way down. So just watch you haven't locked out. And at the bottom, just hang here for a moment. Relax the back of your neck. Relax your arms. And I want you to think about where you're feeling this stretch most, because it usually tells us an area of the body that's, yes, tight, but also it might be that it's overdoing things. So often if our abs aren't showing up, our back takes over. So is your back feeling it most? Is it your hamstrings? Is it your calves? And then when you're ready, just nod your head yes a few times and then shake your head no. Roll your shoulders, shake out your wrists, and then bend and straighten those knees, just opening up the back of the body. Try and keep that neck relaxed, try not to pull it back. And then when you're ready, finish with the legs straight but not locked, and then hold it there. Then when you're ready, I want you to bend your knees enough that you can get your hands on the floor. And we're going to slowly walk out to hands and knees, and I'd like you to meet me out here. And we're going to take a moment to find a nice neutral spine. So we can still think about the rib cage being stacked over the pelvis. Okay, so we can always come back to that visualization if we're not sure we're in neutral. Now in this position, stay in neutral, but just let the tummy relax, let the tummy soften. And Postnatally, I find that feels a little bit weird. Maybe we've got into a habit of bracing a lot because we feel self-conscious about our tummies, or they just feel different. But I want you to just let your tummy relax. So try and let your abdominals have a break. And then start thinking about that zip we often talk about that runs from the tailbone between your legs, past your belly button and finishes in your sternum, so the base of the ribs. So visualize that vertical zip. Right now we're unzipped. We've let it all go. Take a big deep breath in, and on your next exhale, zip up. So starting at that tailbone, start to slowly draw that zip all the way up to your sternum. And then on the inhale, unzip and let it all release and relax again. So same again as we exhale, we start zipping ourselves up all the way to the sternum. And on the inhale, we unzip and keep that going. So the spine shouldn't change shape here. What we don't want is like a cat stretch. We want it to stay neutral, and we want the feeling of zipping up to be muscular. So actually, if we think about what we're doing, we're engaging our pelvic floor and then our transverse, our corset muscle. You can also think about it a bit more literally if you want. So closing the anus, vagina, urethra, and then sort of scooping your tummy up a touch. Now, if you look down at your tummies, we should all be seeing some movement going on. And this is great postnatally because it helps bring some tightness back to that transverse muscle, which will have stretched during pregnancy. And also, when we engage, that's kind of what we can look forward to once that muscle is strong. So what we see here is what will eventually happen if that muscle gets its definition back. So we're going to do 2 more of these. And then on the last one, I'd like you to zip up, and then I'd like you to just hold that last one there. So like when we were in standing, this is essentially a brace. It's such a horrible word because we don't want it to be too aggressive, but this is a brace and we should be able to breathe whilst we're here. So I want you to try and hold this for some endurance and breathe normally. And if we can breathe under a brace, we'll have much more functional core strength. So keep breathing, just maybe another 5 seconds. Maybe have a look down. Does the tummy still look like it's engaged? And then when you're ready, you can just let it go. Carefully push yourself up to standing kneel, and then just give your arms a quick wiggle and a quick shake out. Now we're going to stay in a standing kneel position for a moment. If we have adopted this sort of pregnant posture postnatally, our hip flexors can get really tight and short. I'd like you to take your right foot forward, so your right heel is a little bit in front of your knee. So it's not directly underneath, but it's not really far in front. Then reset. So try and find neutral again for me, particularly your pelvis. And I always use my hands here. So think about the distance you've just created between your ribs and your hips. Now keep that the same and start to shift your hips forwards until you're in a hip flexor stretch. And if that means bringing your right foot further forwards so that you're not overshooting your ankle, then, now's the time to do that. But what it isn't is this. We're not going so far. I see this happen and a lot of this happening when people think they're stretching their hip flexors. It's not big. It's actually about 10 to 15 degrees. So we're not going to be really far out. And then once you've found that position, I'd like you to hold. Now, if you have a cesarean scar, just see how it feels. If there's lots of aggressive pulling, try tucking under a little bit, because it shouldn't be that we are in loads of extension pulling on the scar. We should be able to stay nice and neutral and just breathing into it. Relaxing that left hip. It's not necessarily down here in the quad that you should be feeling it. It should be quite high up in the hip. I'm just going to hold it for 1 more big deep breath. And then when you're ready, you're going to carefully come out of it and come back to kneeling. Now that we've opened up that left hip flexor, I'd like you to come back to 4-point kneeling. So come to hands and knees. Now we can stay on the hands, but if you're finding that your wrists just don't like this, you can come down onto your forearms if you don't have a dog in the way. So you can come down onto your forearms instead. But you just want to make sure that you're still in neutral wherever you are. Now, bend your left knee, so the leg that we just stretched. And then from here, engage your core, stay nice and neutral, and then lift this left leg up towards the ceiling into your glute, kick back and hold the first one here. Now, when we lift the leg, we've loaded our core. So some of us might react by switching it off. So just have a look down, double check that we have still got that gentle brace that we just practiced, that zipping up. I would also just check that you're not back bending, so we still want to have a neutral spine. Now inhale, lower that leg down towards the floor. Exhale, lift it back to the ceiling. Inhale to lower and exhale to lift. And we're going to keep that movement going. So we've got that engagement through the core, which means that we're building up our endurance, okay? So anytime that we are in that gentle brace position, we're stimulating that transverse, that corset muscle. We're working our left glute, but it is really important that nothing else is really moving here. If it becomes this sort of an exercise, then it actually just becomes a lower back exercise. And most of us will just find that uncomfortable tomorrow. So try and stay neutral and move from the hip. And we might find we're leaning to the right a bit. It's almost impossible to not lean, but the less we lean, the more we'll stimulate our obliques. 3 more. Lovely, last 2. On the last one, I'd like you to lift it and hold it. Flex the left ankle, little pulses here, kicking your heel up to the ceiling. 4, 3, 2, and hold. And then when you're ready, lower that knee down and then take a child's pose or a shell stretch. So as long as it's comfortable, sit back on your heels. You can have your arms overhead or your arms by your side and just let the shoulders collapse. Have a breather. 3 and 2, and then use your hands to push yourselves up to kneeling. Now from here, let's carefully flip over onto our bums, and we're going to go into Astronaut. It's a great way of loading the core, and you've got a really good view of whether you're doming. So hands are going to go behind your knees, and then you're going to sit up nice and neutral. Relax the shoulders away from your ears. Now I want you to think about your pelvis and your lower back. Imagine the pelvis is like a wheel. I'd like you to start tucking that wheel under. So try to round the lower back and then go back as far as your arms will let you, and then hold it there for a moment. The reason I want you to think about your lower back first is that lumbar flexion tends to be a bit more challenging for some of us than our upper back rounding, especially because we spend so much of our lives rounding our upper back. So really try and get that lumbar flexion, that tucking under of the bum. Have a look down at your tummy. How's it reacted? It's similar to during pregnancy in so much that initially we'll all have some diastasis going on. That's completely normal, but we want to work with it rather than against it. So just make sure that this isn't causing you to dome. Okay, so have a look down at your tummies. Try to keep them drawn flat. So you might think about that engaging of your core again, that bracing. Now it's up to you. We can stay here, or we can make it harder by making the hands a bit lighter, okay? As long as your tummy then just doesn't pop out. Let's see if we can keep it controlled. If that's working and there's no doming and you feel comfortable, you could rest your hands on top of your knees. And then the final option, again, as long as you've got control, is lifting your hands up to shoulder height. And, you know, even 2-3 years later for me, there comes a point where stuff is too hard and I get a little bit of doming. So it's always finding that balance. Where do I lose control? And then rein it in a bit. So we're going to hold it here for about another 10 seconds. Think about that zipping up that helps keep that corset on. 3, 2. Now put your hands behind your knees and then pull yourself up and over, head between your knees, let the hands reach forwards to your toes and then hold it there. The thing is, we need to load our core. If you don't use it, you lose it. So we do need to load it, but we don't want to load it so much that it becomes dysfunctional, which would be when we dome. Now from here, come back up to seated. It might be worth rolling onto your left side first because we're then going to come down onto our forearms. So we're lying on an incline, which again gives us a great view of our stomach muscles. Try not to sink into your arms, really press the floor away and show off your collarbone. Now, we'll all be a little bit better off here, tucking under slightly. So getting that slight lumbar flexion, that tucking under of the wheel, that helps us already shorten our abdominals. Then from here, look at those tummies, keep an eye on them. We're slowly going to slide our left leg along the mat, and then we're going to slowly bring it back in again. Then do the same with the right leg. Slide it along your mat and then bring it back in again. And we're going to keep alternating those legs. And can we keep the pelvis still? And can we keep that tummy looking pretty flat? If you're managing that, feels good, no pressure out on any C-section scars, then we can start thinking instead about maybe lifting a leg and then lowering it, and then lifting a leg and lowering it. Some of us might find that when the feet are on the floor, we've got good control, but as soon as we lift, it's too much and the tummy pushes out. So if that's happening, just go back to the option before. Now, if you're doing this, and this also feels great, you've got control, tummy's not going all pointy, you're not bearing down, then you could lift a leg, extend the leg, bend the leg, and then lower it. Lift a leg, extend the leg, bend the leg, and lower it. Again, just seeing how far out you can extend the leg without losing form. So we have literally loaded our core to the point where we still have control. If we go too far, we just need to rein it in. Try not to sink into those shoulders. Lovely. And there's always that feeling of zipping back up. So we're going to do one more on each side. Lovely. You'll finish where you're at with both feet back on the floor, and then you can relax because there's not really any demand. Roll onto your side and push yourselves up, and then come back to meet me in kneeling again. So coming back up to standing kneel. So this time we're going to bring our left foot forwards a little bit in front of the knee because we know that we're going to be traveling forwards, and then take a moment to reset, find neutral, try and keep those hips nice and level. Then from here, keeping that nice neutral alignment, start to push the hips forwards. So again, I always kind of keep my hands, so my thumbs are on my rib cage and my fingers are on my hip bones, so I can just check that distance isn't getting bigger as I go forwards. That would look like this. And I've got nothing going on in my hip flexor here, it's just all in my back. But if I stay here, I get lots of hip flexor stretch. So holding it here, breathing into it. The reason it's helpful doing this before a glute exercise is because if your glutes don't work, your hip flexors will often take over, and then they'll get grippy and they'll stop your glutes working. So then when we try and do a glute kickback, we've got no range because the hip flexors are so tight. So if we stretch it first, we should then be able to get a bit more glute engagement. So breathing into it for 3 and 2, then carefully come out of it. Then again from here we can come down onto hands and knees, but if hands aren't happy here or wrists aren't happy, we can come down to forearms. Totally up to you. Before you do anything, find your breath, engage your core, bend your right knee, and then if you're still in neutral, we're going to lift that right leg to the ceiling only as high as we can stay in neutral. And if I wasn't concentrating here, I'd probably end up here. I'd go too high, I'd back bend, and my abs would just switch off. I need to think about keeping that core control whilst lifting that back leg. And then when you're ready, inhale to lower the leg down, and then exhale to lift it back up. Inhale to lower, and exhale to lift. So in this position, have a look down, try and keep those hips nice and level, keep the tummy engaged so we feel that pelvic floor and corset working. Lovely. Try not to lean to the left if you can help it, although it is almost impossible, and make sure you're breathing. Really trying to engage that right glute to pull that right leg back. Good. Exhale, inhale to release. We're going to do 4 more of these. We know what's coming up this time. 3. Lovely. Last 2. On the last one, we lift and hold. Now flex that right ankle and pulse it here. Up, up. Kick the ceiling off your house for 3 and 2, and hold, and then lower the knee down. And again, as long as it's comfy for you, sit back on your heels and take either a child's pose or a shell stretch, and let the shoulders collapse around you and just breathe into it. Lovely. For 3 and 2, and then use your hands to push yourself back to kneeling. Now we are going to come down and lie on our front. If anyone has an early C-section scar and you want to put a cushion underneath it, you can do, or you can avoid this exercise. But we're going to come down onto our tummies, and this next exercise is not a very nice one, but it's amazing for the shoulders. Think how much of your day you spend with your arms reaching forwards and rounding forwards. So here, I want you in a nice neutral start position. You can have your head to one side and your arms are in a cactus position. So elbows and shoulders are at 90 degrees, and then you're going to hold it there for a sec. And once you get cracking, you can always bring your head back to neutral, but for now you can keep your head to the side if you like. Now push your pubic bone into the floor a little bit, just so you're not hanging out in your lower back. I want you to almost feel like you're drawing your belly button away from the ground a bit. And then everyone lift your elbows about 1 inch off the mat. So lift the elbows, just the elbows, keep the palms on the floor and hold it here a sec. Now this should feel quite easy because this is mimicking medial rotation or turning your arm inwards, which, as I said, we already spend a lot of time doing that as parents. So this bit will feel easy for you. Then lower the elbow down, then do it again. Exhale, lift the elbow, and then inhale, lower the elbow. And we're just going to keep this movement going. Exhaling as you lift, inhaling as you lower. So that's the easy bit. We might feel some engagement in the back of the shoulder, but it's not a huge demand. We're going to do 2 more of these and then 1 more. Now on the next one, I want you to lift the whole forearm 1 inch or 2 off the floor, keeping it parallel to the floor, and then inhale, lower the whole arm down. Exhale, lift the arms again 1 inch or 2 off the floor. Inhale, pop them down. Keep this movement going. And if you have a look at your arms as you do this, we're trying to keep them parallel to the floor. It's difficult though because we might start cheating. Have a look at your hands. Are they trying to rotate inwards or are they staying parallel to the floor? And keep an eye on the wrist because that's another area we can start to cheat from. We should feel a bit of activation around the back of the shoulder blades here, which is fantastic. That's what we want. And then just do 1 more. Then the next one's the hard one. Leave the elbow on the ground, lift the hand off the floor, then put the hand down. Exhale again, lift the hand off the floor, and inhale, put it down. But we're not bending at the wrist to lift the hand, we're rotating at the shoulder. So if in doubt, have a quick look at the screen. For me, I'm trying to keep my wrist neutral, and it's rotation at the shoulder that's lifting my hand up, not bending my wrist. And this should actually be really difficult and also quite unpleasant because it's reversing the position we're in most of the day. It's external rotation. 3 more, watch out for any cheating. Last 2. On the last one, let's lift the hands and hold them there for a moment, keeping those wrists nice and neutral. The palms face the floor. 3, 2, 1, and rest. Turn your head to one side, bring your arms down to the side of the body, let the shoulders collapse around you, and you should really feel that the back of the shoulders are a bit tired. 3 and 2, and then use your hands to push yourselves up to kneeling. So we're going to come to a seated position that's comfortable for you. So it might be cross-legged, it might be legs out in front, knees bent, whatever works for you for your pelvic floor work. So just take a moment to get comfortable, and then if you can, try to sit neutral or as neutral as you can, but then try and relax the shoulders and the face. So once you've found a comfortable seated position, try and relax, close your eyes if you can, relax your jaw, because remember, tension in the jaw will also be tension in your pelvic floor. So if we can start with a soft jaw, that will help. And then just pay attention to your breath again, breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. So regulars, you'll probably already know this anyway, but for anyone who's new, when we breathe in, the pelvic floor lengthens, like standing on a trampoline. When we breathe out, the pelvic floor returns to normal. So I want you to start visualizing that. So we're not actually going to do anything to make that happen. I don't want you bearing down on the in-breath, but that is what's happening when we breathe, especially if we breathe properly. The pelvic floor is reacting to your breath. And that's why I really want you today to focus on the exhale as being the lift and on the inhale being the release. So we're working with the pelvic floor, not against it. So today, for your visualization, I want you to imagine a piece of spaghetti. You're going to try and suck that spaghetti off the floor with your pelvic floor. So we can think about spaghetti in all 3 holes or just one of the holes, whatever works for you. But what you'll do is on the exhale, you'll suck the spaghetti up. On the inhale, you'll let it drop to the floor. You're not pushing it out, you're just letting it drop. So we're going to be doing that with the breath. So find your breath, relax your jaw, visualize your spaghetti. We're going to take a nice big deep breath in, and on the next exhale, we're going to suck that spaghetti up. And then on the inhale, it's really important you let it go. As you exhale, you suck your spaghetti up off the floor. And on the inhale, you let it go. And you're going to keep going with that. I'm not going to count it for you just because I don't want anyone to be holding their breath or going too quickly. You move in time with your breath rather than mine. But basically, whenever you're exhaling, you're sucking your spaghetti up, which is activating the pelvic floor. And on the inhale, we do need to let it go because we need a pelvic floor that can also lengthen. If we constantly do pelvic floor work and we forget to release, we can end up with a pelvic floor that's just really tight. So imagine how difficult it is to breathe well if you cannot let your pelvic floor move. It can really affect your ability to breathe. We're going to do 2 more of these. Exhaling as you suck the spaghetti up. Inhale as you let it go. Do 1 more, and on this last one, I wonder if you can hold it for me. So suck the spaghetti up and then see if you can hold it while still breathing. Similar concept to that core engagement. Can we keep a pelvic floor hold whilst breathing? And if we can, we're much less likely to leak when we sneeze or cough. Hold it for another 5 seconds if it's still there. Might have already gone. 3, 2, 1, rest and relax. Have a quick breather, lovely. So from here, let's just stretch out a little bit. So if you're cross-legged, swap your legs over. If you're not cross-legged, just make sure you're still comfy. Take your right hand, pop it on the floor next to you. Left arm reaches up to the ceiling. Then stretch up, then over into your lateral flexion. Lovely. So that reaching up and over just ensures that the stretch is down here rather than compression in the right side. So up and over. In this position, if you were in a toaster, would you get burnt? So just be careful you haven't turned forwards or backwards yet. Try and stay nice and neutral from the front. And just breathing into it. Keep the left bum cheek or sit bone on the floor. Here I do have my hip bone on the floor and I have lateral flexion. Here it's lifted and then look what's happened. There's actually nothing happening there. So we've got to keep the hip down. Then from here, I want you to rotate to look down at your right hand on the floor and then keep reaching with that left arm. So actually your left hand, it's almost like it's reaching for the top left corner of your yoga mat. Breathing, reaching, feeling that lovely stretch through the back of the body. Then when you're ready, carefully come back so you're facing forwards again. Come up and over and then other side. So left hand on the floor, right arm reaches up. Then do stretch up, then flex to the side. So we're trying to get as much length down the right side of the body as possible. Just watch that we still have that feeling of the rib cage being over the pelvis, because otherwise there can be a tendency to go into extension and lean back. So ideally we're still quite neutral and we're just breathing into it. Keep the right glute on the ground, otherwise you lose your flexion. Really nice. Excuse me. Then when you're ready, rotate to look down at your left hand and then rotate the spine as well. So we are twisting towards the floor, so we've got rotation and flexion. Reach with that right arm. I almost want you to imagine I'm pulling your arm out of its socket, and that should give you a really lovely lat and QL stretch. Breathing into it for 3 and 2, then carefully come back to facing forwards. Come up to seated and just have a quick wiggle and a quick shake. Finishing over on hands and knees for me. So coming back to hands and knees and take a moment to reset again. So nice neutral spine, core is slightly engaged and we're not sinking into these arms. Tuck your toes under. And then if you're really early stages post C-section, see how this feels. The rest of us though, we're going to lift the bum up into the air, keeping the knees bent. Press the hands into the ground, and then you can look at your legs rather than the floor. So if you're looking at the floor, you've got to let that neck go. Try and look at your ankles instead. Then I'd like you to relax your face. So open your mouth as wide as it will go, stick out your tongue as far as it will go, and make a HA sound, so a again. Big deep breath in, open the mouth as wide as it'll go, and a couple more of these, and it feels really, really silly, but it opens up the jaw, which can get so grippy when you're a parent. And then when you're done with that last one, keep the feet there. Start to walk your hands to your feet until your feet are flat on the floor, and then just hang. Let it all go. Relax the back of your neck. Make your arms nice and heavy. And then with soft knees, breathe in, and as you exhale, slowly rebuild your spine back up. Restacking. One vertebra at a time. The arms are dangly all the way to the top. And then once you get to the top, I'd like you to just stay there for a couple of big breaths. Still in neutral. Keep that face and that jaw relaxed. And then when you're ready, you can completely relax. You can have a wiggle and a shake out. And that is you done for today. So hopefully you feel good. If you need to rush off, I completely understand. I've got a feeling I've gone over slightly. If you're watching this on demand, I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, get in touch, and I'll see you next time. Bye.